Hey guys, this is gamercal, and this is a very sort of special thing here. Obviously, the game sounds and all that are muted now because this is a recording from my stream now recently on Pokemon TCGO, playing, games on there, of course. And I decided I wanted to try and do something a little bit different with this one because it's actually a really good game and I wanted to try and do some sort of commentary thing for it. Don't know how many attempts that's going to take, but we'll see. So, I'm playing against this guy called NoChance who's using a Plasma Klinklang deck. I'd literally only just played him before and kind of lost pretty badly because I'm using Scolipede over here. And Scolipede's kind of got an issue with steel types being, resisted by them and whatnot, and I need some more, like, lasers in this deck and all of that, which, yeah, the deck's not perfect yet, but the idea of the deck is that Venipede and Scolipede have an ability called Poison Point, which will allow them to automatically poison any Pokemon that damages them whilst they're in the active slot. So that works really well, of course, with Virbank, because Virbank just kind of automatically does more damage when they get poisoned, and the idea of it is to use the Whirlipede for stage 1 stuff, or Scolipede if you can charge it up, and do Venoshock, which will do lots of extra damage when poison is in play. So, yeah, the goal of the deck is pretty simple, but it's difficult to work out because Scolipede takes 4 energy and it only does 80 if they're not poisoned at all. And we're just kind of looking at Venipede saying, hey, the background is the same as what the gym is, which is kind of obvious. But yeah, there is a Whirlipede which has the Poison Point ability as well, but it only has a 50 for free attack, as opposed to Venoshock on the Whirlipede, which I don't think I really show here, but it does 60 more damage if they are poisoned, which means it does 70 for 1. Which is pretty good, considering they're poisoned as well, so it's effectively 100 damage if Virbank is in play. But that kind of relies on them being poisoned by Venipede beforehand, which unfortunately does not usually happen, so lasers are definitely more important for this deck than I expected them to be. And, well, right now, we managed to get, I guess, 3 Venipede on first turn. That was pretty good. Whirlipede is on second turn. I guess that's nice. But, yeah, I didn't attach to the active Venipede simply because I hadn't poisoned anything yet. And, of course, Whirlipede can only do 10 damage if the opponent's not poisoned, which is not a good thing for me, considering Psychic is resisted by the Steel types, so I would actually do 0. Not something I want to see. So really it's a bit of a slow beginning game, this, and well, that tends to be how it is, because with these setup decks here, I mean, Venipede stuff would be really good against the decks that don't have to set up, in the sense that any deck which can attack for a couple of energy, say, and does that very quickly, would get hit by the poison very quickly, and then you'd be able to do the cool stuff with it. But the Klinklang deck doesn't exactly attack that quickly, because its main attackers take quite a while to set up. I guess Pokémon EX only takes 1 energy if that starts, but really, you're looking at later turns for attacking stuff, especially when the dude starts with a Klink, and if they're not going to damage you, then they're not going to get poisoned, which is kind of the issue with the deck as a whole. So that doesn't help. Also, me playing the Scapegoat because I thought, hey, that might be a decent idea so I can poison what I want, is really terrible, because then if I have to use that to switch out, and considering Scolipede's got this gigantic 4 retreat cost that's not exactly unheard of, it doesn't really work very well, because then they switch out as well and they have their anti-poison thing and it's stupid, and yeah, that was a bad idea. So I'm definitely putting switches back in instead of that soon. Anyway, I benched Mewtwo here, even though Mewtwo is absolutely useless in this matchup, because if you don't know, the Plasma Klinklang's ability basically nullifies all damage done by EXs to Metal Pokemon on, the user's side of the field. And that pretty much kills all hope of Mewtwo here. But the reason I benched it is because I wanted an extra card off of Chorus, even though now that gives Registeel the ability to just triple laser my bench as opposed to my active. So really it wasn't that great, but it sort of had to happen, I guess. And there is Rare Candy for that Plasma Klinklang, with a Heavy Ball probably going for the other Klinklang. So the dude gets 2 Klinklangs on the field in the same turn, and both abilities are really good here. Because obviously the Plasma one, as I said, nullifies my EX damage, but the other one, Shift Gear, that will actually let him change around his metal energy as often as he wants. I don't actually know why he didn't attack there, unless he didn't have a second. I don't think he had a third energy, so that's probably why. But yeah, that's like the only bad thing on his field now. He's got his 2 main attackers, Registeel and Cobalion, EXs. He's got the Plasma Klinklang, and he's got the Shift Gear Klinklang, so he can do pretty much whatever he wants here, and I really don't have a whole lot going. I do have my Scolipede, which is what the Escape Rope is going to switch into here, and that can do 60. Yeah, it does 80 normally, 120 if they're poison, so it's really, really powerful if you can get that Venoshock off, but unfortunately it takes 4 energy to do so, 2 of which have to be Psychic, and if they're not poisoned then they resist Psychic, which Darkrai and Cobalion kind of do. It's not a good situation. Anyway, the dude here, he plays like 4 switch and at least 2 if not 3 escape ropes, so he really can switch around a lot, and that's kind of not very good again for the poison matchup. That's another thing which is going against me here, but it's okay, because right now Registeel can only hit for 30 on 3, which is kind of painful. 90 for 3 is not terrible, especially when it's spread damage, but I don't mind that too much. What I do like, however, is the fact that I drew a laser there, obviously, and, well, I kind of misplayed the turn order here, because what I really should have done is I should have gone with the dowsing machine to get myself a escape rope first, forced him to switch into something, and then, if I was playing Switch here, that wouldn't be an issue at all, but because I'm not playing Switch, it's kind of annoying. But I'm going to douse the machine anyway. I'm going to get myself the level ball I decide on, because that level ball will let me get routes out of my deck. I play a 101 line of Gardevoir in here because Gardevoir can double the psychic energy stuff. It basically lets Scolipede attack for 2 energy instead of 3 at best, if usually 4. So I aim to get that out, and Juniper obviously lets me get some stuff. I didn't draw a switch, which is the unfortunate bit here, because if I drew a switch I would have been able to Venoshock for 100, effectively 130 when you consider Verbank and the poison damage too, but I don't, so I just have to pass, and he wakes up, so he can attack as well when that's not cool, because then Routes only has 60 HP, it's kind of in the firing line here. He'll probably hit the Venipede, the Mewtwo, well, maybe not the Mewtwo, but, Mewtwo is always an option here. Routes and Venipede are definitely going to get hit because they will go down in 2 shots. And, well, really not much is going my way at the moment. And Venipede takes 2 energy. He's even got a switch here. I don't actually know why he's using that, unless he's just going to KO Venipede here. But I think it turns out that he actually switches back, which is confusing. But I think maybe he was just using it because he didn't want to draw them later. I don't quite understand why that would happen, but yeah, switch before end and then a switch back because he can or something, I don't know. But the point is, he can get the triple laser here. My client was starting to act up a little bit because it had been going for quite a while, and well, I can get Celebi down at least. Celebi's goal in this deck is to allow Scolipede to use Venoshock from Whirlipede, because you're not always going to be able to have 4 energy on Scolipede to actually use Venoshock, so Celebi can let you use the cheaper, if not, if less effective one, if you want, and that's pretty good. Sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. In terms of turn order here, well, obviously Escape Rope was needed. I really should just have Switch in this deck. This game pretty much highlights that at its best. But I can get myself out another Whirlipede, which is good, because that obviously lets me get another Scolipede up next turn, and I might be able to do something with that. I was shooting for the Gardevoir, obviously, because I didn't want routes out of the game, and I knew I still had a Gardevoir available. So I was hoping to get one. It didn't happen, so I just basically Venoshock for 60. That puts the Cobalion up at 120, which is pretty good. And that's nice. But the problem is, if he was to Righteous Edge here, he would be able to take out my double colorless. But of course, he's not going to Righteous Edge here, because then the poison damage would kill him off before his next turn came, and he doesn't want to give 2 prizes up that easily. So yeah. So instead, what he's going to do is obviously catch up the Mewtwo. He's Skylar for a switch, so that is his 3rd switch, I think, now? It's either 3rd or 4th. I know he's played Escape Ropes as well, so it's kind of... I think at this point it was his 3rd switch, because if I remember rightly, Please got one to play later. But yeah, obviously double prize taken. Mewtwo is stranded active. There's no way I can switch it out unless I play down a Skylar this turn for that. But I do at least get the chance to put routes back in the deck, so I can get that out later. What do I decide to do here? I mean, Skylar for a switch is an option, because then I can go out to the Scolipede, hit for another 60, and do something, which I think is what I decide to do. I could have Junipered, but I think, yeah, the switch play was definitely better, because that way I can get a hit against the Registeel here, except I actually play a bit smarter than that, and I decide to take the kill on the Cobalion and get a couple of prize cards out here, because I had seen he'd already played several ends at this point, so I wasn't too worried about an end coming up, and I knew one of my 2 lasers in the deck was prized, so I was hoping to get that out so that I could do a big Venoshock for 100 here, and try and take out this Registeel, but once again, he's going to Catcher. He got the Skylar for that, I suppose. So Skylar for a Catcher on the Mewtwo again, which is going to force me to retreat, because obviously Mewtwo does nothing whilst Plasma Klinklang is up. And yeah, he decides to hit the Celebi for 30, I suppose. I can see that as a good play, because then if he can Catcher it up later, then Cobalion can just one-shot it, which is good. But yeah, I just go with the 2 retreat cost here, because I had a laser in hand. Double colorless retreat is always nice. And from here, I can discard my other 2 non-Juniper cards to get a Pokemon out, which is going to be the Routes, I believe. Go back for that, because Routes is pretty important at points. And then a fresh Juniper for 7 is obvious there. I can get Gardevoir out next turn, which is really good. And I think I was checking at this point to see if I still had a Scolipede potentially left, because I run a 4-2-3 line of Scolipedes, so I have 1 left, and that means that Venipede would be worth benching, but I think do I hold out on that? I think I hold out on that this turn. It's difficult sometimes remembering exactly what goes on here, but yeah, I hold out on that until next turn, because I want to get Gardevoir up primarily, so... yeah, and there's a fairly big flip there. He flips tails on the Hypnotoxic. I flipped heads on both of them, actually, which is surprising, because I didn't flip very many heads all night on those, but the 2 which I use in this game I get heads on. And yeah, basically he's only got 20 HP left, so he is going to get knocked out by the time his next turn comes. And that's really, really good for me, because then I've knocked out 2 EXs. I go down to just one pair of prizes left. If I knock out 1 more EX, then I win. But he doesn't. No, just about to say he doesn't have another EX on the field. But then he benches a Cobalion, which basically gives me my target now. But of course, he has the Klinklang on the field to shift gear wherever he wants, so he doesn't lose any energy here. He still has a crazy amount of energy attached here. I think it's like 5 or 6 at the moment, and that's a lot. So he's not going to be short on damage anytime soon, and that doesn't help me at all. But I do get a Skylar, which is good, and he has to flip. That's a glitch on TCGO. Obviously, you don't flip when your Pokemon gets knocked out with poison stuff, but, you know, that's how it goes. So, yeah, I get Gardevoir out, which is fantastic. That means my bench Scolipede does have enough energy to attack as well. My active has now got an excess of energy, but that is okay, because it really doesn't make a difference. As you can see, I only have 7 cards left in my deck. I have the right cards that I need to still win, but I only have 7 left in deck, so I've got to take these last 2 prizes really quite quickly if I'm going to survive this. And what I intend to do for that is to capture out the Cobalion, because I've seen he's used 2 escape rope, I believe, and 3 switches at this point, saying he's got to be running out of switching cards here. And whilst it can kill me off if it just attaches and uses Steel Bullet, I reckon I can get the poison on it and then just Venoshock kill it. So this was most definitely the best play that I could have done here. And yeah, it's the way forward with this. I think if he just attacks into me and knocks me out, then I win next turn. But of course, if he wants to, he can retreat to the Cobalion on the bench and Iron Breaker, which would do a hefty amount of damage and stop me from attacking next turn, but it wouldn't knock me out. So then I could just retreat, go to the other Scolipede, use the Venoshock, and stuff would be good. However, TCGO kind of takes a dump on my plan here and does not poison him. I didn't realize it immediately until, you know, he was like, oh, good game. He actually says that in the chat in a sec, and I was like, huh, what? But I should have actually won this turn, because he should have been poisoned, taking 30 from that, and then I kill him off with Venoshock, and it would have been great. However, yeah, he doesn't get poisoned, which means the game still goes on. And what do you do from here? Like, I don't have any catches left at this point. I have played all 4. We saw what was left in my deck. There is no catcher in there. I think I look at my discard later and say, oh, all 4 catches are gone. So that's not good. So if he retreats this Cobalion, I have no way of bringing it back up active. So I have no way of just taking 2 easy prizes here. This guy is, well, every guy is going to go down in 2 hits at least. If he knocks out one Scolipede and then takes out the Mewtwo, which I can't actually attack with at all this game, as we've seen, I pretty much just lose. On the other hand, if I can somehow take out that Cobalion EX, or if I can take out 2 of his other Pokemon, which is an uphill battle when you don't have any lasers and you're relying on him attacking you to get poisoned, it's possible, but it's not a good looking situation in the slightest. And, well, what honestly do you do from here? It's a tough call. But I guess what he's gonna surprise me with here is he actually has a 4th switch. I know I'm sort of spoiling it beforehand, but he happens to have 4 switches in the deck, which I was not expecting at all. I thought, well, 5 switching cards is kind of high as it is. It's not too high, but when you've got lots of catches too, it is fairly high. And he does run at least 1 max potion, so I'd have to ask him how he actually fit all this stuff in the deck. It's kind of pretty crazy. But yeah, he actually has another switch, and I just didn't know what to even think of doing here. But that does mean that he's going to get this Iron Breaker off, which is going to do 80 and stop me from attacking next turn with the active Scolipede. But the nice thing is that Cobalion's only got 120 HP. Oh, and he also has a chorus for like 7 cards, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, Cobalion only has 120 HP, which means that with the poison damage, if I can get a Venoshock off next turn, I can knock it out. Now, the only way I can get a Venoshock off here is if I get another Scolipede out, because I don't have any switching cards left. I only play like 2 switches, one of which was prized, and 2 escape rope in the deck. So I need to physically retreat here. And I decide to keep the Skylar because I was saying, well, I need the rare candy, obviously, so that's what I need to play this turn. I keep the N because of how few cards I have left in my deck. An N as the last card in my hand would actually draw pretty much all of my deck. So the double colorless discard, maybe I could have just kept it because DC would have let me do stuff as well. But I didn't regret it in the end because I knew there was 1 energy left in my deck, so that's fine. Scolipede does have a gigantic 4 retreat cost, so even with Gardevoir doubling stuff, I needed to attach the DC to retreat it as well. I obviously kept the other psychic energy on it because then it still has 2 energy attached, which can work. I guess I was just worried about Righteous Edge at that point, that he could have just done that somehow. If he had a max potion here, then that would have been really scary. But I happened to draw my switch off of the prizes. That doesn't actually matter too much because I do have enough energy to retreat here. But it's a good thing nonetheless. And yeah, his plan at this point is pretty much go ahead and gear grind and hope for stuff. And oh man, he gets 2 heads on the gear grind. That's 160. That just one-shots my completely fresh Scolipede, which is really not good here. You know, I should have had this game won beforehand, but yeah, it's coming down to the absolute wire here. He is poisoned, so he's going to take the 30 from that, which is really good, because then the Klinklang's got 140 HP, so he has, at least I think it's 140. It's either 140 or 150, I can never remember this thing, but some of them have got 150, I think this one's only 140. But yeah, the whole point in the end, I put the Gardevoir out first just in case I didn't draw the energy, because I had 2 cards left in deck, as we'll see here. That's my last card. So basically, I put the Gardevoir out so that I could burn the switch, and then make sure the N would draw my last card just in case I didn't get it. And as it turns out, you know, I didn't need to do that, but regardless, I take my final prize with the poison Klinklang thing there, and pretty much win the most epic game in history there. Obviously should have won it with not, you know, the glitch thing not killing me off, but as it turns out, that's just how it goes, and it turned out to be a much better game as a result, I think, anyway. You know, the way it was won was cooler, so I'll go with that. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Definitely going to be playing this deck a little bit more once I've refined it, and yeah, tune into the stream stuff that I do, I suppose. Don't know if I'm going to stick with this style of doing it, or if I'm just going to do highlights, but I kind of like trying to do this. I think I just need to practice it a bit more and get a bit better at it. But yeah, that's for another time. So yeah, join me for more games later, I guess. I've got more to highlight from this stream, so look forward to that.